Welcome to the Padres Postgame Show on the Padres Radio Network. Coming up, we'll deliver a full recap of today's game, including highlights from the biggest moments. We'll take a trip down to the manager's office to hear from Mike Shildt. Plus, we'll bring you scores from around Major League Baseball. The Padres Postgame Show starts now on the Padres Radio Network.
Welcome into our post-game show on the Padres Radio Network. Another wild and wacky one in Miami to wrap up this six-game road trip. The Padres fall by a final score of 7-6 in Miami. Padres see their 7-game win streak come to an end. Padres do go 5-1 on the trip, but man, do we have a lot to get to on our post-game show with the way this one ended. Sam Levitt with you here inside our San Diego studios. So let's dive in as best we can here to the final moments of this game. Ha-Seong Kim hitting what initially was ruled a home run to tie the game at 7. And by the way, I don't care how this game ended. I'm going to tell you right now, this was another game where the Padres came back again. I mean, they came an inch or two away from tying this game again in the 9th inning. But let's dive into what happened here. And let's begin with the explanation passed down from the MLB replay room in New York City. This was Ryan Addison, and here was the supervisor explanation. You may have heard this with Jesse and Bob right before they went to break. Here was the explanation on the final, or not the final, but what was originally a home run for Kim, later ruled into a double. And if you missed it, the ball hit the top of the fence in the 9th inning with 2 outs. A home run would have tied the game. Kyle Stowers leapt for it after it hit the top of the wall. It hit his mitt and then went over the fence. And again, the initial ruling from the umpiring crew in Miami was home run and tie game. Here is the explanation for the overturn and why Kim was awarded a double. After viewing all relevant angles, the replay official definitively determined that the ball struck an area of the field that is in play and was subsequently deflected by the fielder over the wall. Per the MLB umpire manual, if a fair ball not in flight is deflected by a fielder and then goes out of play, the award is 2 bases from time of pitch. Because the ball struck the fence first, it is no longer considered in flight. The call is overturned, no home run. It's instead a ground rule double. I know that Jesse and Bob alluded to Mike Winters. I've been texting a little bit with Mike, who we're fortunate enough to know from his time with the Padres on the television broadcast around the ballpark a lot. From my understanding, and we'll hear from Mike Shildt here in a second, we'll do that first on our post-game coverage. From my understanding, once that ball hit the top of the wall, and number one had apparently a direction of coming back into play. Now, you can argue whether that padding, if it's turned the other way or if it's just straight, it might have hopped right over. But once it hit that padding, and the replay room determined that it was coming back in play, the ball is no longer considered in flight at that point. So what they're basically saying is once it hits the top of the wall and the fielder touches it, it can't be a home run. It's almost like the ball hit the ground. It's no longer in flight. And in the same way, it's not like Stowers can catch it and make an out, right? I'm just going to read some things that I've been told here. When the ball hit the wall and came back toward the field, by rule, it is no longer in flight. It can't be caught for an out. It can't have gone out of the playing field in flight. So it's the same as if it hit the ground and bounced over. And I've kind of gone back and forth on this. I said there's no scenario in which the fielder could touch it after hitting the wall and it's a home run. So, again, apparently, once it hit the wall, it is no longer in flight, at least in this specific scenario. Now, again, had the ball just hit the wall and went over the fence, it's a home run. We see that all the time, really. But it was no longer considered in flight when it hit the wall and then Stowers touches it and it goes over the fence. That's the best I've got for you right now on the explanation. You heard what the MLB replay room had to say. Let's find out what went on the field? What was Mike Shildt told about that ruling on what was a Ha-Sung Kim home run, later turned into a ground rule double by the replay room in New York? Let's hear from the Padre manager after this 7-6 loss in Miami.
Let's pull up a seat in the manager's office and hear from Padres manager Mike Shildt. Presented by Sinley Food. Spice up your culinary life.
Mike, what did you get back from Bill on that call?
Honestly, nothing.
What is your
He
understanding?
gave me no explanation, said it was overturned ground rule double.
Ground rule double.
Well, yeah.
Okay. What is your kind of interpretation then? What are you?
The rule is if it hits the wall, hits the defender, goes over the wall, it's a double.
Never seen one like that.
I've not.
Yeah.
I think they got it right. I don't, whether I agree with the rule or don't agree with the rule, it's a tough place for the timing of it. Ball went over the fence, didn't touch the ground. Feels like a home run, but rule tells you differently. But what an effort from the group. Another good squad performance.
And again, the more chipping away 5-0 and 5-2, 5-3. I mean, just keep.
You're down 5-0 in any game. It's a challenge. You're down 5-0 the last day of a road trip, day game. Easily seen it. Don't alibi it, but it's a day where it's hard to figure out a way. And this is what makes me so pleased with this club, the trait of this club, irrespective of circumstance, score, road, home, day, night, hot, cold. They're going to compete, and they're going to give us what they've got, and that's plenty. So it was a heck of an effort, man. Hats off to the group for the way they competed today.
Do you feel like Dylan was maybe a little rusty from what happened last week?
I don't know if it's rust. I mean, we're in August. He did have a little bit of a break, but he did get in a game. They put some good at-bats on him in the first. They really did. Had a long first inning. Again, put some at-bats on him. Berger put a swing on him. We didn't help him out with some, we didn't play as clean as we'd like to, but, we do play clean baseball, and that's going to happen occasionally. So I think it was a combination of things. I give him credit for being able to gut through 5 innings and keep it right there where we had a chance clearly at the end to take the lead.
Mike, just quick. It was an emotional series for Arias coming back here to Miami. What do you have to say about him? He had a spectacular series like he always does here in Lone Eagle Park. But what do you have to say about him?
Yeah, no, he's quite a talent. He's got the heart of a lion. He's a really good player, but he's a equally good competitor. He just plays the game the right way, and he rises to challenges and brings people up around him. So he's a special talent, a special human being. A lot of respect for Luis.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
The schedule's the schedule, but you're flying home tonight. You get 3, and then you're back on the road. Just your thoughts on what's next, I guess.
What's next is tomorrow, man. That's what we keep our focus on is what's staying present and what we can do. I mean, you only have so much time and energy. You start looking down the road, start looking at the schedule, start looking at. It's just it can get you away from what your mindset is, and our mindset is just we're going to get home, enjoy getting back to Petco in front of our fans, and we're going to go compete and be ready for the game tomorrow night.
That was Padres manager Mike Shildt after this 7-6 loss in Miami. Sam Levitt back with you inside our San Diego studios here on the Padres Radio Network as we wrap this one up and try to make sense of how this one ended, the overturned call on what was initially a home run for Ha-Sung Kim, then turned into a ground rule double. Well, the first thing we heard is that really Mike Shildt didn't get any information on the field. And, I know it appeared that the crew chief's Mike wasn't working. I will say this, and I know it's something we've talked about before, and that's been talked about on our radio broadcast before. Major League Baseball's got to do a better job of somehow, some way providing, in real time information as to why a call like that gets overturned, because it sounded like Mike Shildt didn't get much of an explanation, but what it sort of boils down to, it sounds like, and I'm working on maybe getting us an explanation a little bit later as well, but what it sounds like it boils down to is that once the ball hits the fence and hits Stauer's mitt, I mean, it essentially sounds like that's there's no way it's going to be a home run after that. It sounds like for getting direction. I mean, had it popped straight up and Stowers knocks it over, it sounds like it would have been a ground rule double. So it may boil down to a pretty simple interpretation of the rule, and unfortunate. And look, in the grand scheme of this game, I'll be honest with you, I'm going to have a hard time sort of putting this game in like a category, because to me, this very well could have been a Padres win, another come-from-behind win. They trailed 5-0. They trailed 7-4. I guess in reality, based on the results, there were a couple of things that they couldn't get done that they had done earlier in this road trip. So we'll step aside. We'll come back with the radio highlights. Much more to come on our post-game coverage. Again, sort of another wild game on this road trip. Man, what a road trip this was as far as wildness and wackiness. Padres dropped to 66-53. We'll recap this game from start to finish when we come back, and we'll continue to try to make sense out of what happened in Miami at the end there as well. More after this on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios. Final score in Miami in this series finale between the Padres and the Marlins. The Marlins 7 and the Padres 6. Padres see their 7-game win streak come to an end. Padres do go 5-1 on this 6-game road trip. They'll come home tomorrow as we continue to wrap this one up. In case you missed it, a very sort of confusing, I don't know if controversial is the right word necessarily, but certainly confusing call in the 9th inning. It appeared Ha-Sung Kim had tied the game with a home run, 2 outs in the 9th inning. Looked like the Padres had come back again. But then on replay, after the ball had hit the top of the fence, the left fielder for Miami, Kyle Stowers, leapt up for it, hit the top of the fence, hit Stowers' mitt, went over the wall. Call on the field was home run. The replay room in New York City overturned it, called it A ground rule double, and then Luis Campusano struck out. The Padres lost this game 7-6. We're very fortunate right now to bring in Mike Winters, a long-time Major League umpire, decades umpiring in the major leagues, and we're very lucky to have a relationship with Mike from the last couple of years. Does a really nice job on Padres TV as well. So we welcome Mike Winters in right now. Is going to help us sort of understand, before we move on here, what exactly happened, how it was interpreted in New York. So, Mike, first, thank you for joining us on a beautiful Sunday here in America's finest city in San Diego. Thank you for taking some time. How did you interpret what happened on the field and then what the replay room saw? Help us understand.
Hey, Sam, thanks for having me. I understand it's confusing, but when the ball hit the wall and came back towards the field, by rule, it is no longer in flight. So I describe it this way: a player can't catch it. It's the same as if it bounced on the ground once it starts coming back towards the field. So it didn't hit the top of the wall and continue out. If it had done that, then yeah, it would have been a home run. But it came back towards the field and then hit the left fielder and was sent over. So by rule, no longer in flight, and then the fielder knocked it out of the park over the fence in dead area, and now that made it a ground rule double.
Mike, I may ask some sort of silly questions here, but just to I know. In umpiring, no silly questions, but is there any scenario, like if that ball, let's say, pops straight up, and we can't tell whether it would have went over on its own or come back into the field of play, is there any scenario where the fielder can touch it and it does end up being a home run once it hits the fence, or that's a no-go?
Yeah, if it hits dead on top of the wall and pops straight in the air, and as it's coming down, then it's touched, then maybe,
okay.
But that'd be very, very difficult to do. But clearly it came back towards the field, and that's the key to me. That when the second it happened, I just happened to have the game on, and the second it happened, and I said, that's a double, and waiting for the crew to check it, and sure enough, Miller checked it, and they ruled it correctly.
Right. So essentially it sounds like the key part of this, Mike, is it was determined that the flight of the ball was changing to come back into the field of play. At that point, it was no longer quote unquote in flight. It sounds like that's the real key part of it, is that and it did appear to maybe redirect and be coming back towards the field. That sounds like the really key part to understand, that once it redirects off the fence, even though it's still in the air, if the replay room determines that it did redirect, it is no longer quote unquote in flight.
Correct. And for it to be a home run, it has to leave the playing field in flight.
Understood.
So definition of in flight is as long as it doesn't touch anything other than a fielder. If it touches a fielder, by definition, it's still in flight. So it can hit like the Canseco play where it hit his head and bounced over. Everybody remembers that one.
Right.
The ball technically was still in flight. This one, as soon as the ball came back towards the field, it is no longer, by definition, in flight. It can't be caught for an out, and it can't leave the park for a home run.
Right, and I guess it's sort of like the same concept of, let's say, an outfielder, and we've seen this, leaps at the wall for a ball that wouldn't have left the park, but knocks it out. So there is a difference, Mike, between it hitting a player in the air in that capacity and hitting the wall. There seems to be a difference with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, it hits a player, by definition, the ball is still in flight. And that's where, like you say, had the play a couple weeks ago, or it was last week, where Bogarts, it went off of his glove, and Merrill ended up catching it.
Right.
By definition, the ball still is in flight once it hits it's because it only touched a player. It can touch players and still be considered in flight. If it were to hit something else, let's say that scenario, they were near the wall, and it hit one player's glove, hit the wall, and then the other one caught it, no longer in flight, cannot be a catch.
Okay,
all
interesting.
Right? So the key here is the definition of in flight. Once it hit the wall and came back, no longer in flight, it can't leave the park in flight, so
Right.
it can't be a home run.
Right. It's that determination that the ball is no longer in flight. It's about the direction.
Correct.
Wow. Very, very interesting, Mike. Very, very helpful as well. I guess we got to blame the fence. I mean, seriously though, I mean, I say it sort of
too tall.
Yeah, well, I say it sort of jokingly, Mike, but like you could see that the fence was sort of slanted back towards the field. If that fence is straight and it doesn't redirect back, it sounds like then there's a real chance that we may still be playing here. Yeah, I mean, seriously, the direction of the fence may have played a role in this.
There's a lot of ifs and ands.
Yeah, okay.
Ifs and buts and all of those, but the fact of the matter is it hit the face of the fence, came
Right. Right. And by the way, I fully understand, and Mike, you did a great job here. I fully understand that the explanation from Mike and us talking about it doesn't necessarily make Padres fans any happier.
No,
But-
it won't make anybody any happier.
Right,
But
right.
maybe understanding
Right.
what was called and why it was called might be helpful.
Okay, Mike, great job, and appreciate you calling in. I think you do give it a lot of clarity here, and again, may not make anybody feel any better about today's loss and losing the ability to come back and tie it. But, Mike, great job. We really appreciate you calling in. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that is Mike Winters, a longtime Major League umpire, calling in. Look, again, I think if you're a Padres fan, and I got to look at this replay. There were a million things going on here in the studio. I got to look at it again, and I will during the break. I think where, and I got to look at it again, but I think where, if you're a Padres fan, you're looking at your case is, hey, did it actually redirect towards the field? How could they possibly determine that it was redirecting with 100% certainty? Remember, the call on the field was home run. How could they, with 100% certainty, know that it was redirecting towards the field? And I guess that would sort of be the sticking point. But clearly in New York, they made that determination. So, again, I know it's not going to make anybody feel any better, but great job there by Mike, at least explaining why they called what they called. So, it stinks. I mean, from a Padres perspective, it stinks. It's all unfortunate. It really is. Whether Kim could have hit the ball, 6 inches farther, or, again, if that wall is just pointed differently, could have been, it could have hopped on the wall and then hop right over the fence like we see all the time. So there are a number of factors that, could have gone differently, but that umpiring crew, or I should say the replay room in New York, they determined that it did redirect and, with that was no longer quote unquote in flight. So unfortunate. It's not going to make anybody in this city feel better today. And I get it. Man, that's tough. It's just a really, really tough break. Man, what a weird road trip this was. All right. We'll step aside. When we come back, we'll do the highlights. We'll start to get into our daily awards, full out-of-town scoreboard, all our usual post-game stuff coming your way. I know this has been a little bit different, but we had a wacky ending, and I wanted us to understand it. So we'll continue to break it down. Final score in Miami, Marlins 7, Padres 6 on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. Final score in Miami, Marlins 7 and the Padres 6, as the Padres lose a tough one, a wacky one in Miami today. Look, all in all, despite how weird and wild the ending was and the overturned call, all in all, really two thoughts on it before we get to our game recap. Number one, the Padres, if you're a Padres fan, I don't think you should feel bad at all about this loss, beyond just being upset about the way it ended and the overturned call and the frustration with that. We saw the same Padres team we've seen for weeks now. Come from behind. They almost tied it. They did tie it for a moment in the ninth inning. Again, unbelievably. Look, you can't get worked up, at least to me, about the fact that they lost this game just at the surface level. It was a great road trip, 5-1. They still are 16-3 in their last 19 games. And now you come home to face the Pirates tomorrow. You got to keep it rolling. But we saw the same team we've seen for weeks now, and quite frankly, the same team we've seen on this road trip. So, I don't think you can get too crazy just if you just look at the final score and say they lost the game without knowing anything else that happened. Of course, the game is not in a vacuum. And again, a big thank you to Mike Winters for coming on in our last segment, and he certainly did give us some more insight into what the replay room saw in New York. Even during the break, I'm looking at some stuff on Twitter and trying to understand. I'm still not confused. I still have questions, about the rule and, again, because we heard from Mike Shildt and he didn't really get a good explanation. So, at the end of the day, it's a loss for the Padres today, and they fall 7-6. This was a really wild game back and forth in a road trip full of wild games. Let's recap it from start to finish, how it went down in Miami.
What moments had the biggest impact on today's game? We'll paint you a picture with our game recap on the Padres Radio Network.
Things did not start well today for the Padres in South Florida. In the bottom half of the first inning, the Marlins greeted Dylan Cease with a pair of singles to put runners on first and third. Cease got the first out, but then Jonah Bride hit a slow roller that would become an infield RBI single. The Marlins had a 1-0 lead. Marlins weren't done. Later in the inning, it was Otto Lopez.
Bride and Berger are on the move. 3-2 pitch, lined and over the head of Cronenworth into right center field. Merrill gets to it. Berger has scored. Bride will be held. And a good battle with Otto Lopez turns into an RBI single. 2-0 Miami in the first.
We go to the top of the second. Derek Hill reached on an error from Ha-Sung Kim on a routine ground ball. That was the start of trouble. Hill went to second on a sac bunt, then a ground ball towards the middle that Kim fielded. He threw a bit wide to first base. Luis Arraez couldn't catch it cleanly. It rolled away far enough for Hill to score from second base. The Marlins led 3-0. That was ruled an error on Arraez. Moments later, it was Jake Berger.
Pitch here hit hard and deep into center field. Merrill is back. He is at the wall. It's going to go. Another homer for Jake Berger. He has gone deep in all 3 games of this series. A 2-run shot here in the second inning, and the Marlin lead is now 5-0.
Meanwhile, the rookie Max Meyer was perfect through 3 innings. The Padres had a great scoring chance in the top of the 4th inning. Runners on first and third with 1 out, but Manny Machado grounded into a double play to end the frame. Padres did find a way to scratch across a run in the top of the 5th inning against Meyer. Xander Bogaerts hit a leadoff double. He went to third base on a ground out. He scored on an RBI ground out from David Peralta. The Padres then started to chip away little by little. In the top of the 6th inning, Luis Campusano led off with a single. Luis Arraez doubled off the right field fence, sending Campusano to third base. Jurickson Profar drove in Campusano with a ground out to make it 5-2. Arraez went to third on that play. He then came home on a ground out from Jake Cronenworth. Padres were back in it. It was a 5-3 game. Meyer took the mound for the top of the 7th inning. The Padres still down 5-3. They kept on rallying. There was a runner on first base for David Peralta.
And now the first pitch to Peralta, swung on, hit hard, fair down the right field line. That's going to roll all the way to the corner. Merrill speeding around second, heading for third. He's going to be waved. Jackson's lost the helmet on his way home. No throw. RBI double David Peralta, and a 1-run game in the 7th.
The Padres had the tying run on second base. The Marlins went to righty Declan Cronin out of the bullpen. Cronin struck out Ha-Sung Kim and Luis Campusano to end the inning. The tying run was left stranded. In the bottom half of the inning, Sean Reynolds returned to the mound after he tossed a scoreless bottom of the sixth. That was after Dylan Cease got through 5 in this game. Jake Berger started the inning with a leadoff single against Reynolds. The Padres then went to lefty Yuki Matsui to face left-handed hitting Jesus Sanchez, who came into today hitting just 118 on the year against lefties. It was the right matchup, but the result was this.
Runner on first, nobody out. 5-4 Marlins in the 7th, and he hits it in the air to very deep right field. How about that? Peralta back to watch second deck. A home run for Sanchez. It's a 2-run shot, and the Marlins re-extend their lead at 7-4.
That was all Matsui allowed in the 7th inning. Andrew Nardi came on for the top of the 8th inning out of the Miami bullpen. Padres trailing 7-4. Luis Ariz hit a leadoff single with 1 out and a lefty on the mound. Mike Shildt pinch hit for Jake Cronenworth. Instead, he went to Donovan Solano off the bench. And guess what? The Padres skipper pushed the right button.
2-2, the pitch on the way. Solano swings, sends it in the air to left field, pretty well struck. Stowers is back, still going back. He's at the wall, looking up, gonna go! Pinch hit, 2-run homer, Donovan Solano, and a 1-run game here in the 8th inning. He is now 5 for 10 in the pinch this season. 7-6 Miami.
Another big-time moment for Donovan Solano. Jason Adam pitched a 1-2-3 frame in the bottom half of the 8th inning. So we went to the top of the 9th inning. Padres still down 7-6. Nardi stayed on. He retired Jackson Merrill for out number 1. Nardi then got David Peralta, another left-handed hitter, for out number 2. After that, Skip Schumacher, the Marlins manager, went to right-hander George Soriano out of the bullpen. So again, the situation here, 2 outs, nobody on. Padres down 7-6 in the top of the 9th inning. And you know what? Excuse me for a second here. Soriano did not come in yet, so I'm sorry. Nardi stayed on to face Ha-Sung Kim. Marlins 1 out away from a win, nobody on. Kim representing the tying run, and then all this went down.
Pitch coming. Kim swings, sends it in the air, deep to left field. Stowers is back, still going back at the wall, leaps up, can't make the catch, hits off the top of the fence and goes! A home run to tie it! Down to their final out in the 9th inning. Ha-Sung Kim, it's his first homer since June, and it's 7-7 in the 9th. Bill Miller is checking with his buddies in New York. His microphone has not been working today. He's trying to make his announcement. The microphone's not working. He will signal a double. What? And Mike Shildt coming out. I don't understand. Bill Miller gave him the shrug.
So yeah, a ground rule double was the ruling, and we've talked about it a ton already. Luis Campusano then struck out against George Soriano, who came in out of the Miami bullpen. That ended the game, and that was it. We had a tie game at 7. New York took it away, and the Padres lose 7-6 in Miami as the Marlins salvage the finale of this 3-game series. Padres have their 7-game win streak come to an end. Padres now 66-53 on the year. Marlins improved to 44-75. Final totals for San Diego: 6 runs, 10 hits, 2 errors, and for Miami, 7 runs, 10 hits, and no errors. All in all, a very, very good road trip. Padres were the comeback kids again. They trailed 5-0. They trailed 7-4. But it took the replay room to prevent the Padres from coming back in this game. It took the replay room in Manhattan to prevent the Padres, the San Diego Padres, from battling back here today. There has not been a lot as of late that has been able to stop the Padres when they trail in these come-from-behind efforts. But today, it was, unfortunately, the replay room in New York was the culprit as the Padres fall 7-6. All right, well, step aside. When we come back, we'll get into our daily awards, out-of-town scoreboard. Much, much more to come as we wrap this one up. Marlins 7, Padres 6, the final score on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. Final score in Miami, Marlins 7, the Padres 6. And if I told you the final score and you looked at the box score, that would not be enough to tell you how this one went down. Padres nearly had another massive come-from-behind win. And, well, to be honest with you, for a couple of minutes in the ninth inning, they at least tied the game. And we had a 7-7 game, but again, all the drama with what was a home run initially called on the field turned into a ground rule double by the replay room in New York. And you might be asking yourself, wait, hold on a second. How could a home run possibly become a ground rule double? Well, we've spoken all about it. We've spoken with former MLB umpire Mike Winters to break down the explanation, and we'll dive back into it again before we go, just to sort of recap and give you some final thoughts on what was determined and why. I understand if you're a Padres fan, you're totally allowed to be angry and have a gripe. That's fine. There is an argument to say it was the right call. I do think that based on the rule, whether you like the rule or not, but it's confusing. And I understand out there if you're A, confused, and B, not happy about it. And that's totally within your right. And I think there is a case, a sort of Padres colored glasses case to be made for it. So we'll talk a little bit more about it. I do want to get to some of our daily awards here. Let's tell you about our relief pitcher of the game.
Which pitcher was able to come in and slam the door shut? It's time for the relief pitcher of the game in support of the Jacobs and Cushman San Diego Food Bank, providing food assistance to local children, families, and seniors in need. To get help or give help, visit SanDiegoFoodBank.org.
Our relief pitcher of the game, we'll keep it on the Padres side of things today. Really, you got one option, Jason Adam. Scoreless inning in the bottom half of the eighth, kept it a one-run game, so that was big at the time. Really easy inning for Adam, too. 10 pitches, struck out 2, 1, 2, 3. So for that reason, Jason Adam, our relief pitcher of the game. Hey, you know what? If that ends up being a home run and they tie the game, I mean, that and they win the game, let's say, even that inning from Adam is huge. It is. So he did his job, certainly in that eighth inning, to keep it a one-run game. Let's take a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard, tell you what's going on today around the major leagues.
Let's take a trip around the Bigs and tell you about the scores you need to know in our out-of-town scoreboard. Presented by Jensen Meat, where great taste meets integrity.
We take a look at scores from around the major leagues. We have a number of finals already. Some games still going on right now. Guardians beat the Twins earlier today, 5-3 in Minnesota. Reds beat the Brewers 4-3 in Milwaukee. The Rays beat the Orioles 2-1 in Tampa Bay. A's beat the Blue Jays 8-4 in Toronto. Yankees beat the Rangers 8-7 in New York. Giancarlo Stanton, Juan Soto, Aaron Judge all homered in that game for the Yanks. Astros beat the Red Sox 10-2 at Fenway Park. Alex Bregman a home run in that one. Angels beat the Nationals 6-4 in D.C. Games going on right now. Braves ahead of the Rockies 7-2 in the seventh inning in Colorado. Tigers 3, Giants 2 in the fifth inning in San Francisco. Diamondbacks 5, Phillies 2 in Arizona in the fourth inning. Dodgers 4, Pirates 2 in L.A. in the fourth inning. Mets and the Mariners at 4 p.m. Coming up later, a little Sunday night baseball on the West Coast, in the Pacific Northwest, rather. Be a little more specific. Anyway, that's a full look at the out-of-town scoreboard on this Sunday. When we come back, let's tell you about our player of the game. We'll hear our play of the game. And we will also dive one more time kind of back into what happened in that ninth inning with the Kim home run. Replay room overturned it. We'll dive back into it again, give you some final thoughts on that. Again, the final score, Marlins 7, Padres 6 on the Padres Radio Network. Our post-game show continues here on the Padres Radio Network. Sam Levitt with you inside our San Diego studios as we wrap this one up. Marlins 7, Padres 6. The final score in Miami, it was not as simple as the final score and reading the box score here today, but the Padres do fall. Again, the Padres see a 7-game win streak come to an end, so the Padres cannot win an 8th consecutive game for the first time this season. Padres, look, had a great road trip, 5-1 to Pittsburgh and Miami. So many come-from-behind wins, so many great moments, and at the end of the day, the Padres now in a 19-game span are 16-3. If somebody would have told you coming out of the second half, since the All-Star break, they would be 16-4 in the first 20 games out of the break, I think everybody would have signed up for that. And at the start of today, sitting in the top wild card spot, I understand it doesn't soften the blow of what was a frustrating loss today. But at the same time, they've played some great baseball. So if you're the Padres, you have a good flight back to San Diego. Get ready to take on the Pirates tomorrow at Petco Park. And I also think, before we get into our player of the game, play of the game, and sort of wrap it up here, I also think, look, there was a side to this game where you can look at it and say, hey, anytime you fall behind 5-0, it's going to be a tough day to come back. And essentially, the Padres could never quite climb the mountain in this game. They got it to 5-4, then it was 7-4, then they got it to 7-6. They just couldn't find that one big swing they needed. Now, of course, the big asterisk on that is that Kim, for a moment, did tie the game with a home run, so they did get the swing. But again, in reality, it came up, I suppose, a little bit short. And also, when it was 5-4, Matsui giving up the home run to Sanchez, that was a big moment in this game as well, made it 7-4. Let's say Matsui gets out of that inning, and then Solano hits the 2-run home run in the 8th inning. Padres have a 6-5 lead, and they lead in this game going to the bottom half of the 8th inning. So there were certainly other elements to this game that played a factor. Look, now, a really unfortunate part of the Kim overturn, not only did it prevent the Padres from tying the game, but it would have been a great moment of redemption for Ha-Seong Kim personally in this game. He had a rough day. He was 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts before that swing. He committed an error in the 2nd inning. First bat, a routine ground ball. He just didn't field it cleanly. Error that opened the door to that 3-run 2nd inning. And then Arise was given an error a little bit later in that inning. But, Kim, if he makes a better throw that's right on target, Arise probably catches it. Ultimately, the error was given to Arise. So it was a tough day for Kim before that swing. And the overturn did take away the redemption in that 9th inning for Kim. So that was sort of an unfortunate part of it as well. Let's tell you about today's player of the game.
Which player had the biggest impact on today's game? Let's find out who is today's player of the game. Presented by Valley View Casino and Hotel. Catch every game at Paddy's and Pints. Plus, enjoy $4 beer every Thursday. Visit valleyviewcasino.com today.
Our player of the game, we'll give it to a Marlin today. I think Jake Burger deserves it. 3 hits, home run, 2 RBIs, 3 runs scored. Not only did he have the home run in the 2nd, his 3rd of the series, to make it 5-0, but he also had the base hit against Reynolds in the 7th inning right before the Sanchez home run. So he started that rally. He had the home run early. Burger had a good series. 3 home runs. I told you in the pregame, no triple hamburgers, and there was a triple hamburger today with the home run. So he was really good in this series, really was, and really good today, very impactful. So Jake Burger of the Marlins, our player of the game, unfortunately, here today, had the Padres tied the game, won the game, and it went a little bit differently in the 9th inning and maybe even beyond. Probably looking at a different player of the game, but you look at it ultimately, and we'll give it to Burger on this Sunday. Let's hear today's play of the game.
What was the crucial play that determined who came out on top? This is today's play of the game. Presented by Bill Howe Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
Runner on first, nobody out. 5-4 Marlins in the 7th, and he hits it in the air to very deep right field. How about that? Peralta back to watch second deck. A home run for Sanchez. It's a 2-run shot, and the Marlins re-extend their lead at 7-4.
Play of the game, unfortunately, another Marlins swing, but it's got to be that way today. Jesus Sanchez, the 2-run home run in the 7th inning, made it 7-4. And guess what? The Marlins needed each and every run that he provided because they won it 7-6. Put the game just a little bit out of reach, literally like 6 inches out of reach for the Padres today. So, look, that was an interesting moment because it was the right call for Mike Shildt. They went lefty on lefty with Sanchez, who was hitting 118 against lefties on the year, and Matsui threw a fastball right down the heart of the plate, and Sanchez took care of it. So it was the right matchup. It was not great execution, and it was a bad result on what I think was the right matchup with Matsui and Sanchez, but the home run by Sanchez was really, really important. So that's our play of the game as the Marlins win it by a final score of 7-6. All right, before we preview the Pirate series, wrap this one up, just to sort of recap the play with Kim. I mean, look, there'll be plenty of talk about it tomorrow, I'm sure, on Ben and Wood starting at 6 a.m. I'll give you how I kind of fall on it at the end of our post game here after talking to Mike Winters, after reading what the replay room in New York had to say. And again, I've got to take a much closer, and I got to scroll on my phone, Twitter here to find the replay and like watch it 10 times. It appears to me that the ball, now, if the top of the fence was straight and not slanted back towards the field, maybe it just goes right over and Stowers never even touches it. We'll never know because the fence wasn't pointed that way. So you could have a problem with the fence. And, if a grounds crew member didn't, take the other side of a rake and like poke it to get back in place. I'm serious. I mean, seriously, if that fence is sitting straight, the Padres may win this game and tie this game and it just bounces over the wall. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it's true. Once that ball hit the fence, and again, the determination of the replay room was that it redirected back towards the field of play. That meant when Stowers touched it and it went over, it was not a home run. They determined that it's quote-unquote no longer in flight once it made that redirect. And the fielder can't then touch it and redirect it to go over. They essentially ruled that Stowers actually redirected a ball that was coming back into the field of play and hit it over. Again, whether you like the rule or not, that's what essentially, from what I understand after all this, that's what they determined, that it was coming back towards the field of play. Again, the fault of the fence. Okay, as weird as it sounds, the way that top of the fence was slanted. And that's what they determined. And they gave it a ground rule double. And once that ball is no longer in flight, it can't be caught for an out, and it can't go over the fence for a home run. Those two things can't happen. So it goes out of play once Stowers touches it, and it becomes a ground rule double. Again, you can hate the rule. I'm fine with that. You can be upset. I'm fine with that. I totally get it. Now, the Padres' perspective here, if you're a Padres fan, and I get it, would be this. This would be the argument to me, a Padres fan, would be, how could you, remember, the call on the field was home run. That's important here. How could you, with 100% certainty, 100% conclusive, say that that ball was coming back towards the field of play? Could you say that with 100% conclusive evidence? And that's the part of it, I think, here in San Diego today, where I think you have a case and a right to be upset, because I don't know. I mean, I got to watch the replay 30 times to look at it again and again. But that would be the case of, could the replay room in New York say for sure that that ball was coming back and was going to drop on the warning track if Stowers never touches it? But we'll never know. Replay room made the determination, and they gave it a ground rule double. So it's unfortunate. Like I said at the very top, I mean, look, it was a great road trip. The Padres fought their way back again. This was the team we've seen for weeks now, certainly on this trip. And unfortunately, they got a really, really bad break and some bad luck. Literally, like even beyond the replay room. The padding on the top of the fence. I'm being totally serious. If a grounds crew member, let's say, I don't know, it may have been out of place. Seriously, may have been out of place. If a grounds crew member before the game goes out there with a rake and takes the other side of the rake and pokes it back into place and it's now flat on top of the fence, that could have been a home run. Could have just bounced right over the fence, hopped right over the fence, went the other way. Wacky game, baseball is. All right, taking a look ahead to this series against the Pirates. So we do have the pitching matchups in that series, and we have important business to get to before we do that as well. Taking a look at this pitching matchup against the Pittsburgh Pirates, or I should say the pitching probables, if you will. For the Padres, their rotation will look like this. Right-hander Joe Musgrove will pitch tomorrow. Right-hander Michael King will pitch Tuesday. Left-hander Martin Perez will pitch on Wednesday. For the Pirates, tomorrow right now it's TBA. They have not announced their starter for tomorrow. Tuesday, right-hander Luis Ortiz. And on Wednesday, right-hander Mitch Keller. The Padres will miss Paul Skeens again. So tomorrow, our pitching matchup right now, Joe Musgrove on the mound for the Padres. And right now it is TBA for the Pittsburgh Pirates. First pitch tomorrow at 6:40 p.m. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show will begin at 5:40 from inside the Western Metal Building at Petco Park. Again, 6:40 first pitch at Petco Park. Our pregame coverage begins at 5:40. Every Sunday is Military Sunday, and we want to take time to recognize and thank all military members for their amazing dedication and service. San Diego County Toyota dealers, proud partners of the Padres, are honored to support San Diego's military community. As always, if you missed any of our post-game coverage, you can go back and listen to all of it on the Inside San Diego Baseball podcast with Sam Levitt, available on the Odyssey app or wherever you find your podcast. You can also go back on the 97.3 The Fan YouTube channel and watch any portion of our post-game coverage there as well. Taking a look at the final totals in this one here today. For the San Diego Padres, 6 runs, 10 hits, 2 errors. They left on 3. For the Marlins, 7 runs, 10 hits, no errors. They left on 6. Winning pitcher in this game was Max Meyer, who improves to 3-2. Losing pitcher was Dylan Cease, who drops to 11-9. And the save goes to George Soriano, his first save of 2024. Time of game, 2 hours, 40 minutes. And the crowd at Lone Depot Park in Miami, 15,699. Once again, first pitch tomorrow, 6:40 from Petco Park. Our EcoWater SoCal Padres pregame show begins at 5:40. Until then, for our great studio coordinator, Frank Mark Casey, I'm Sam Levitt saying so long from inside our San Diego studios. Again, the final score, a wacky one in Miami. The Miami Marlins 7 and the San Diego Padres 6. We'll talk to you tomorrow from Petco Park. Have a great rest of your Sunday.